You're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it, but the new Toyota CHR blurs the line between Toyota and Lexus, definitely in terms of what features you're getting and design, but also when it comes to how much this thing costs. But there's no denying that this is one, a major step up from the previous generation, and two, it looks like a concept car that's just rolled out of the design studio. So let's talk about what features you're getting on the outside and the inside, how practical it is, what this thing is like to own and run, and also what it's like to drive. But before you buy a brand new Toyota CHR, make sure you visit productreview.com.au, because there you're going to be able to read reviews from owners who have bought and lived with cars like the Toyota CHR, and you're also able to review your own car there as well. There are three Toyota CHR models to choose from. You can choose the rather plain base model for around $47,000, and you can go all the way up to a GR Sport model, which will cost you over $60,000 drive away. This is the nice middle of the ground model. This is the Toyota CHR Cobra, which is going to cost you $49,990 before on-road costs. So you're looking around the mid $50,000 range before you tick any options. But you can think of the new Toyota CHR as the sexy cousin compared to the more plain Toyota Yaris Cross and the Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid. And talking about hybrids, all Toyota CHR models are only available with a hybrid powertrain. But if you go for the GR Sport model, you get a slightly bigger petrol motor to give you a bit more power. But what have Toyota done to help justify this price tag, which seems rather high for a small Toyota SUV? Well, first of all, the exterior sheet metal. This thing looks like no other Toyota on sale today just yet, because this is wearing the new Toyota design language, which you're going to see on the new Toyota Camry, and also you can see it on Toyota's new Crown products, which we don't get here in Australia. And part of that is this very prominent nose up front, these rather striking LED lights which are shaped into a C shape, which look really quite cool. And you have the bodywork going straight through the middle of the LED lights, and you've also got this dual tone paint down on the lower parts of the bumper. Now, another striking feature is this paint color. I mean, my jaw nearly dropped to the floor when I saw this in the metal. It's definitely making a statement, and it's the Premium Plus dual tone paint scheme, which is the most expensive paint option you can get on a Toyota CHR. But if you don't want a dual tone paint scheme, you can pick a few colors which won't give you that, and that's not going to cost you any money. Now, the other option you can get is a sunroof, which will cost you $2,700 extra. This car doesn't have it, but if you tick the dual tone paint and the sunroof, it will push this car's price to nearly $60,000 drive away. To no one's surprise, underneath the hood of the Toyota CHR, you're going to find a reliable, efficient, and cheap to run 1.8 litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine paired up to Toyota's hybrid powertrain, which comprises of an electric motor and battery. And when combined all together, it's going to make 103 kilowatts and 142 newton meters of torque. And all this power is sent to the front wheels exclusively through a CVT automatic gearbox. Now, because this engine is so under stress, it takes regular fuel. So that's going to mean it's going to be cheaper to fill up at the fuel pump. And it also means that this has a claimed fuel efficiency figure of around 4 litres per 100 kilometers, which is very good if you don't want to spend a lot of money on petrol. Now, there's a cap price service period for the warranty period, which means that every service will only cost you $200 every 12 months or every 15,000 kilometers, which is very inexpensive. But if you like, Toyota will allow you to prepay your services for 3 years, which will cost you $600, or 5 years, which will cost you $1,000. So you can have your cake and eat it if you want an interesting looking car and a reliable fuel efficient powertrain. Now, on the CHR Cobra, you're going to get these dual tone 19-inch wheels, which are wrapped in a Bridgestone rubber. Now, something that sort of stood out to me is that this car looks so dramatic with its bodywork that even these nice wheels, which would stand out on any other Toyota, look actually kind of plain looking when put on this very aggressively styled car. You've also got this Y shape here in the sheet metal, which is actually a theme for the design language of this car, so much so that this Y shape is found in the puddle lamp, which projects when you unlock this car at night. Perhaps one of the coolest things on this Toyota is that you get these flush door handles, which with the press of a button, pop open just like that. But they are extremely loud, so when you close them, They make quite a sound, especially on the inside of the car when they're banging against the metal. But if you really want to take advantage of this car's styling, I do think that the dual tone paint scheme is, yes, quite dramatic, but I think it actually is what you need to make this car to stand out. Now, some other things to note back here is, yes, there's no rear windshield wiper, which feels a little bit impractical for a SUV, but instead it looks better when you don't have that, and I will have to agree, it looks nice and sleek here at the rear, especially with this contoured roof spoiler, which isn't really a spoiler. Instead, it's just shaped nicely, but there is a bit of a spoiler here at the back integrated into the rear light bar, which I love the look of. It really helps make the thing look like a rolling concept car. And you even get Toyota CHR put right here, illuminated as a badge at night, which I think is a nice touch and helps clean up the rear here without having to load it up full of badges. And a weird thing to note is that the actual cabin is a little bit narrower than the wheelbase it sits on, which creates for a bit of a weirder driving experience compared to something like a Toyota Yaris Cross, but it also gives this thing a butt that would make Kim Kardashian very jealous. Okay, so you're getting a really sexy looking car on the outside and some pretty unique paint options, but what about practicality? Well, you get a power hatchback here and 388 liters of boot space. If you fold the seats down in a 60-40 split, you'll get a total space of 1,155 liters, which is a respectable amount of size for a SUV that is this big. The only annoying thing here is that you have a pretty sizable boot lip here, so if you need to drag any big suitcases out, they're gonna hit this plastic here, but that's why it's made of plastic after all. But something that's a bit annoying for Australian buyers is that there is no spare tire here at all. There's only a tire repair kit and an air compressor, which is a bit weak for a car that is known for its reliability and dependability. The old CHR felt pretty claustrophobic in the back seats because of the big C-pillars that it has, and this car carries over that same design. So they aren't just big blind spots, but they also block out a lot of light, so it feels quite dark here in the second row. I only have a single USB-C port in the back and one map pocket. And I don't even get an armrest in the back, but we do have ISOFIX points for any child seats. But we have very, very small rear windows, which go down all the way, so that's a good thing. At least you can get some air in the back that way. The seats are relatively comfortable, and as a 5'11" adult, I have okay amounts of knee room, decent amounts of feet room, and okay amounts of headroom. But if you're taller in the torso or you're over 6 foot, you're gonna find this to be a little bit more squished. Middle seat room's actually not too bad because the transmission and exhaust tunnel isn't that big, but yeah, this really is more of a two-seater car that also has a second row, because I wouldn't want to spend a whole bunch of time back here because it's too dark and there's not too many amenities back here for me to enjoy. But up front is where things took a massive leap. We have very nicely trimmed doors with soft touch materials on the top of them. We have this suede material on the doors and armrests. We have memory seats for the driver. We also have this nice leather wrapped steering wheel, which looks a lot more modern and nicer compared to older Toyota vehicles. We have a JBL sound system in here, which sounds excellent for the price, and a very uniquely contoured interior which matches the origami on the outside of this car. So you get a heads-up display which is color and also gives you information about your speed sign, the gear you're in, your speed, and also your driving information in terms of what driving aids are activated, which is very useful. You then get this 12.3-inch display here which has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Wireless Apple CarPlay looks really nice. It takes up the whole screen and is very responsive, which is a good thing. Now, if you want to connect your phone to this car, you get 1 year of complimentary connection to Toyota's connected services, including safety and security features. You're getting driving insights and also remote connect, all through the My Toyota Connect app. But after that 1 year is done, you have to pay a subscription fee. But things like remote vehicle status monitoring, a vehicle locator, and remote climate control functions are all locked behind a Connect Plus service, which will cost you $9.95 per month over 12 months. And if you want your car to be connected to multimedia functions, it's going to cost you $12.50 to have things like in-car satellite navigation and also things like last mile directions and all that sort of stuff. So having a more connected car is going to cost you per month, which I think is a massive downside considering how much this car costs. But the great thing is, unlike BMW, Toyota is not going to charge you for connecting your own phone to the screen, which has pretty much everything you need. You also get Nano X particulate filtration here in this dual zone climate controls, and all these climate controls are physical, and all the key functions in this car are also physical. So there's nothing in the screen here you'll have to interact with to control this Toyota, which again is a major plus. You also get wireless charging, and you've also got physical buttons on your steering wheel with a driver monitoring little strip here if you're wondering what that is. And you also get a digital display for all your car information, and you can customize that a couple of different ways in terms of how it looks and what information it gives you. But I'm not a big fan of this screen here in front of me because it's just not that responsive. It looks great, but it's got a really low refresh rate, which kind of sucks when you're using it and looking at it every single day. Some other things to note in here would include these two-piece sport seats, which look great, and they also have nice material on them in terms of some leather type material on the outside and this cloth and suede material on the inside to help grip your body, and they feel very supportive and very comfortable. You also got a separation between the driver and the passenger, which sort of goes in line with the fact that the Toyota CHR is meant to be this stylish, sporty, small SUV, and it makes it feel like you've got a driver-focused cockpit. But it sucks for anyone who calls himself a passenger princess because it feels like you're blocked off from pretty much everything on this side of this division. But you do have your own little storage there and an okay sized glove box, which is actually pretty decent for holding things like big water bottles. You also have a bit of storage here in the center cubby and a tiny little tray here for things like credit cards or keys, but you have a single USB-C port in there, a 12-volt socket there, another USB-C port there. You get two small cup holders here, which I find very useful, but this trim piece here on the actual divider has been beat up quite a lot, so it doesn't look like it's going to hold up to the test of time if you're constantly dragging things over the top of it. I really like how simple the driving controls are here. You have your shifter, you have your drive mode select, you have your EV mode button, and your electronic handbrake. Now, another thing to note in here is that you also have a digital rear vision mirror, which is great if you load up the back and you can't see out the rear, and also helps try and negate those massive blind spots over the C-pillars. But the only thing I hate about this is that the camera is mounted really low, so it looks like people are really close to you even though they're not, and it can feel a little bit disorienting. So I actually have been driving around with the camera turned off, which I don't normally do in cars that have a digital rear vision mirror. But sorry to let you down, this thing definitely doesn't drive as exciting as it looks. I know Toyota have made this thing look exciting, but it definitely doesn't drive anything like it looks. It's a very normal Toyota hybrid driving experience. If you've driven a RAV4 hybrid, if you've driven a Toyota Yaris Cross, or even a Corolla Cross hybrid, you're pretty much getting the same driving experience here. I will note that the cabin feels like it's squeezed on top of a wider body. So this is actually one of the few cars that I've had a hard time getting a feel of where all four wheels are, because it feels like you're sort of sitting more in the middle of the chassis, and you have sort of the body spilling out over the sides. So it's just a bit hard to get my bearings when I'm driving this thing in tight sort of laneways and also next to any sort of awkward curbs. And so I'm using my mirrors a lot more than I feel like I would in, say, like a Toyota Corolla Cross, for example. The handling in this thing as a result of that wider body is actually quite nice. It feels like we've got a very solid foundation to be able to swerve, to be able to maneuver. It's just a very nicely planted small SUV. And it sort of feels like it's giving you all-wheel drive grip, even though this is a front-wheel drive model. This thing is also ultra quiet, thanks to this being an efficient 1.8 litre 4-cylinder de-stressed petrol motor paired up to an electric powertrain. And if you want it to be extra quiet, you've got an EV mode button here if your battery's charged up enough. And as we're doing right now, we're cruising around on electric power alone. But if you need to accelerate quickly, you'll hear the petrol engine kick in and the car will just jump out of EV mode. You also do have some other drive modes here. We have normal, which is something I don't really understand why you would drive in that. This is an economy car after all, so I'm usually find myself driving an eco. And then you've got sport and you have a custom mode. So in sport, your steering feels a bit more stiff and a bit more rigid as it normally would, and you're just getting a bit more of a responsive engine. But really, nothing much is changing because there's not a whole bunch of power here for sport to make any sort of meaningful difference. We're driving with a CVT transmission here, which is the perfect gearbox for this type of vehicle. I don't think you need any flappy paddles or any dual clutch transmissions for a car like this. And you've also got this cool shifter here, which allows you to jump into a regen mode. So we can jump this into B mode and we'll get a little bit of regen braking, which is actually quite useful when you're coasting around town and you don't want to be on your brakes all the time. Talking about brakes, let's go for an emergency stop in 3, 2, 1, and oh, this thing pulls up very well. So if you do find that you have to brake really quickly in this car because it's nice and light, it weighs under 1.5 ton, it should pull up pretty well. And these wheels are actually offering a really nice supple ride. The ride is really comfortable in the new CHR. And combine that with a planted feel, it's a really comfortable daily driver. My only irk in this car is just the visibility out of this thing is not great. It's a pod-like cabin. There's not as much light that is entering here as it would be in, say, a Toyota Corolla Cross, which has large windows and it's a bigger cabin, and even the Toyota Yaris Cross, which is just a bit more boxy, where this has some pretty aggressive bodywork, which means I've got a nice huge blind spot over my rear shoulders, which isn't that good. But we do have a very comprehensive 360-degree camera system in this Cobra model, which works very well. And then the other thing, yeah, like I mentioned, it's hard to get a bearing of where all 4 edges are in your car because the cabin feels like it's sort of squeezed a bit more on top. Fuel efficiency is also very impressive here. I'm seeing average fuel economy around 4.9 liters per 100 kilometers, which is very good and actually seems like you should be able to achieve Toyota's claim 4 liters per 100 kilometer claim if you're just driving around very conservatively. The turning circle here is also pretty good too, so it's a really nice daily driver if you're living in the city and you want something that looks a little bit more exciting than a Toyota Yaris Cross or a Toyota Corolla Cross. Another big plus in here are these JBL speakers. These are excellent and definitely feel like they punch right where they need to be for this car's price tag. But when it comes to the ride, there is a bit of jitteriness that translates through cabin, so it's quite comfortable, but over some uneven surfaces, this cabin can feel a little bit shaky, which isn't the best feeling, especially when this car is really comfortable over smoother tarmac, for example. But I do have to say, it feels like a really refined ride, and it feels like this is definitely blurring the line between a Lexus and a Toyota. There's a lot of you out there who want a sexy, small, little crossover, and that's exactly what this car is. It's not that exciting to drive, but not that you care about that. All you care about is how this thing looks on the inside and the outside, and that's where the Toyota CHR delivers. There is a price to pay for this type of design, but Toyota offers it here with this CHR. If you don't care about design and you just want a practical, small, hybrid SUV, just go and buy yourself a Toyota Yaris Cross or a Toyota Corolla Cross, because those will feel a little bit more light-filled, a bit more practical, and a little bit more sensible, and are a little bit cheaper compared to this. But it's definitely getting harder to distinguish between a Toyota and a Lexus when Toyota are making cars as nice as this.